What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's expression episode. Today's expression episode is going to be to pull the wool over someone's eyes. And this one was voted by everyone in the virtual classroom, the Aussie English Virtual Classroom Facebook group. And it won, it got the most votes. And it was suggested by Patinka. Thank you so much, Patinka, for suggesting this expression that everyone voted on and chose it as this week's expression. So if you want to do that in the future, if you want to suggest an expression, and if you want to vote on the expression that will be the expression for the week, then definitely jump over to the Aussie English Virtual Classroom. Just click join, I'll add you, we chat in there, we do all sorts of exercises, video exercises, and once a week we vote on which expression I'll be discussing on the weekends. So I hope you guys are having a good day. I haven't yet set a time for these live streaming episodes. I kind of just do them when I have time now on Saturdays. Last week was the very first one and it seemed that that was a great idea. This is the second one, obviously. The basic format's going to be the same thing. Open it up, tell you about my week, tell you about the different words and everything in the expression, tell you about the expression, give you examples, and then we'll go through some listen and repeat exercises. And I guess the best bit is that at the end you can ask me questions about this expression and about anything else related to Aussie English, English, Australia, anything that you want to chat about. So keep those questions for the end. Anyway, let's dive into today's content, guys. Crazy Australia fact number 2. I guess we started last week and I'm going to try and do this at the start of each episode, but Australia fact today, the crazy Australia fact is that Australia is the driest continent on Earth except for Antarctica. So it's the driest continent on Earth except for Antarctica. And it's a pretty crazy thing when you actually go and check out a map of where in Australia it's populated. You'll see the entire continent, most of which is desert, and then there's the Great Dividing Range that goes from Cairns up in the north of Queensland all the way down to Melbourne, and then you'll have a little bit of green that goes all the way over to Perth, and that's the area that's the most densely populated of the entire country. I think probably 99% of people live along the coastline, the eastern coastline and the southern coastline of Australia, and it's because the desert is so dry that it's just effectively uninhabitable. Anyway, give me a thumbs up, give me a love heart if you guys can hear me okay, and if you want to share the video, now's the time. Let's dive into the different words that are used in the expression to pull the wool over someone's eyes. So the verb to pull, if you pull, it's that you grasp something, you grab something, you hold on to something, and you bring it closer towards yourself, or you take it somewhere. So if I grabbed onto you and led you in my direction, pulled you towards me, that's to pull. A car could tie itself onto another car or something like a tree stump. It could be anything. And if it drives away while it's connected to that thing, it's pulling that thing, it's towing that thing, it's taking that thing with it. So that's to pull, to grasp something, to be connected to it, and then to bring it towards you usually, or in a direction with you, to pull. Wool, which rhymes with pull. Wool is the hair or the fur that grows on a sheep. And a female sheep is called a ewe, E-W-E, that's a ewe, sounds like the pronoun you. A male sheep is a ram, and sheep are one of the most common livestock animals that you'll find in Australia. And we specifically grow them for meat that we'll get from lambs, baby sheep, and also obviously for the wool that we'll get from the adult sheep. I actually grew up on a farm. Didn't grow up on the farm, sorry. I grew up going to my grandparents' farm and they had sheep when I was younger, and we used to shear them. We'd go every year before summertime, after winter. The sheep will have grown all their wool really, really thick. You know, it'd be 10 centimeters or so dense, thick, and we would hire a guy to come to my grandparents' farm, to come to the sheds, and he would shear every single one of my grandfather's sheep in about a day. So it would, or maybe 2 days, but yeah, it used to be really good fun. And then we would bale the wool up. We would use this big machine that my grandfather had to put the wool into what we call a bale. So I guess like a Hessian sack, but huge. It was bigger than a man. And it would be full of wool, and he would sell these. So it would be used for clothing and everything. So that's wool, the fur or the hair that grows on a sheep. If you pull something over something else, it is that you have pulled that thing, you've held it, grasped it, grabbed it, and taken it to cover something else. So you've pulled it over something, over the top of something in order to cover it. And we're showing that the thing is being covered by using the phrasal verb over, so pull over. Sorry, using the preposition over. If we pull something over something else, we're covering that thing. So you might pull the plastic covering over a pool, as in where you go swimming, and you're pulling it over in order to cover the pool. So to pull something over is to cover that thing. The last one, and I'm sure all of you guys know what this is, an eye. I've got 2 eyes right here. I can see with my eyes. If I pull something over my eyes, imagine it's my jumper, or it could be my hair. If I had hair, I could pull my beard up over my eyes if my beard was longer. So my eyes are what I see with, and if I pull something over my eyes, I'm covering my eyes so that I can't see. So I might pull my hat down over my eyes. And a cool thing there you might notice is that we're actually combining prepositions in phrasal verbs. They may seem like they're a little bit more complicated, but we're combining multiple prepositions to kind of explain the action that's happening there. So if I pull something down, I pull my hat down. That's the motion of going from here to here. And if I pull something down and over something else, it's just a very simple way of explaining a more complicated concept by using multiple prepositions. Pull my hat down over my eyes. So something to think about next time you hear a phrasal verb with multiple prepositions following it. Often it's just describing 2 different movements that are happening the same time as the verb action that's explaining those movements. So to define the expression to pull the wool over someone's eyes, it's a very simple expression in regards to its definition, and it just means to deceive someone, to trick someone. So you're effectively saying something or doing something in order to prevent them from knowing what you're really doing. So if you pull the wool over someone's eyes, you are deceiving that person, you're tricking that person. It could be malicious, it could be a bad thing, or it could be benign, where it's not really that it's a nasty act or a nasty thing that you've done, but you're deceiving the person nonetheless. So it could be a white lie, meaning that it's not really something bad. You've told them something that's not true, but it's not a malicious lie. It's not a black lie. So there's those 2 kinds of lies that we would, I guess, refer to as white lies and black lies in English. So to talk a little bit about the origin of this expression, guys, at first I was like, I guess maybe it's talking about a woolen jumper, a jumper made of wool, and someone's pulling it over their eyes so that they can't see. But then I looked up the definition of the expression, and underneath it, it had the origin of where this expression came from. And I can't remember if it was the US or from the UK, but apparently it dates back to the 16th and 17th centuries. So I guess it's probably the UK, because I don't think the Americas were around in the 1500s. But it was when, back then in that time, men would wear wigs made of wool, right? So I probably need to get a wig. If I wanted to pretend to have hair, I would buy a wig and put it on my head. And instead of using other people's hair, they would use the hair from wolves. And you'd probably see this kind of wig in courts in the Western world. So you'll see those barristers and judges wearing those weird wigs with, the weird curly kind of hair, and they would make those out of wool. And I guess the expression originates from having that wig pulled down over someone's eyes so that they couldn't see what was going on, so that they were being deceived or tricked. That was the literal idea behind the expression, to pull the wool in the wig, to pull the wool over someone's eyes. And the figurative meaning was that it was deceiving them, tricking them. They couldn't see what was going on. They were missing what was happening. They were being deceived. So 3 examples, as usual, guys, for how we would use this expression to pull the wool over someone's eyes. If you pull the wool over someone's eyes, or if someone pulls the wool over your eyes, you're deceiving someone or you're being deceived. So example number 1 that I have here is that imagine that you tell your boss you're sick. So you're pulling a sickie. You're pretending to be sick. You've called him up. You've told him, "Oh, I'm feeling really bad today. I can't come to work. Oh, sorry, I'll come in tomorrow." But instead of actually being sick, you've gone to the beach to have a surf, or you've gone to hang out with your mates. Anyway, news travels back to your boss that same day, and he finds out you're not actually sick, that you're not actually in bed trying to recover, and that you've gone to the beach to surf, or you've gone to see your mates. And so in this case, you could say you've tried to pull the wool over your boss's eyes. You've tried to deceive him. Or you could say that you have failed to pull the wool over your boss's eyes. You've failed to deceive him. So you might go in the next day or the next week to work and he'd be like, "Good try, mate. You didn't quite pull the wool over my eyes. You're fired." Yeah. Or he might just be, a little annoyed and say, "You're not going to get paid for that. There's no sick leave. You lied to me. You tried to pull the wool over my eyes, but I worked out what was going on. You didn't successfully deceive me." So that's example number 1. Imagine in example number 2 that you are cheating on your partner. So you've gone away on a business trip and you've told your partner that it's only going to be 2 nights. Maybe you're flying out to Sydney, and instead of going to the airport to fly to Sydney, you've actually gone to a woman's house or a man's house, someone with whom you're cheating on, your wife, your partner, your husband, whoever it is. So you're having an affair, you're cheating on the person there, but you've pulled the wool over their eyes by telling them, "I'm going to Sydney," or "I'm going on a business trip. I'm going to do this other thing that's related to work," when in reality, when in actual fact, you have gone to see someone else that you're having an affair with. So you're cheating on that person, you've lied to that person. In this case, I would say it's a black lie. It's not a white lie. It's not harmless. It's a malicious lie. And you're trying to pull the wool over your partner's eyes, or you have successfully pulled the wool over their eyes. You're deceiving them. So example number 3. Example number 3, and this could be an example where we talk about white lies, guys. So a lie nonetheless, but not a bad lie, not a black lie, not a malicious and nasty lie. This is relatively benign and you're doing it for the right reasons. So imagine that it's my dad's 60th birthday, which it actually is in about, I think the 26th of September this year, so 2 or 3 weeks away. So it's his birthday and I'm trying to organize a surprise party for him. So I might tell him, "Dad, on the way home from work, it's really important that you go to the shops and grab some beer because I want to hang out with you tonight, Dad, just you and me." When in reality, I've got 50 people coming over. We're all going to hide in a room. We're going to be waiting with balloons, with cakes, with a candle. I probably wouldn't put 50 candles in it, but maybe one of those candles that is 50, the number 50 with, 2 flames on it. And so I've told him this lie. I've pulled the wool over his eyes. I've told him to go get some beer, go grab some stubbies. Maybe he'll grab some tinnies, stubby bottles, tinnies, the can of beer, bring them home. When he gets home, he opens the door and we all yell surprise and start singing happy birthday. And he might say, "Oh, you really pulled the wool over my eyes. You really tricked me. You really deceived me. You got me." So it was a white lie. It wasn't a nasty lie. It was, for a good reason. It was a benign sort of trick, but that's pulling the wool over my dad's eyes. So those are the 3 examples, guys. Now let's get into the listen and repeat exercise. So this is your chance to practice your pronunciation and listen to what I say and then repeat what I say. So if you aren't currently somewhere private, on your own, at home or out in the public, try and find somewhere where you can talk, whether it's quietly or out loud, wherever you are, and listen and repeat after me. And let's practice your pronunciation, guys. And then after the listen and repeat exercise, I'll go through a pronunciation tip regarding this phrase that we're going to go through. And then after that, we'll go through some questions. So have in mind anything that you want to ask me about this expression episode, any of the vocab that I've used, anything in English, anything about Australia. If you have your questions, I'll be waiting around for 5 or 10 minutes after we finish this episode. But let's get into the listen and repeat exercises, guys. So listen and repeat after me. To pull. To pull. To pull. The wool. The wool. The wool. To pull the wool. To pull the wool. To pull the wool. To pull the wool over someone's eyes. To pull the wool over someone's eyes. To pull the wool over someone's eyes. Now I'm going to go through a sentence saying it in the future, and we'll conjugate through all the different pronouns. They're pretty much the same. Well, they are the same for every single pronoun, but we'll switch in the different pronouns. So listen and repeat after me, guys. I'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. You'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. She'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. He'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. We'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. They'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. It'll pull the wool over someone's eyes. Good job, guys. Good job. One thing that I know some of you are going to say, or probably be thinking, geez, he says those L's in a weird way. They almost sound like a W. And I was actually trying to emphasize that fact. We call that in Australian English at least, and I think British English too, potentially American English, we call that the dark L. The dark L. So we get lazy, guys. When there's an L at the ends of words that is preceded by a vowel sound and which is followed by not a vowel sound, so a consonant sound, we pronounce it as an ooh kind of sound. So we're not saying ooh where we're putting the tongue up. We're not saying ooh, we're saying ooh. So we make the sound with our lips instead of our tongue, and our tongue actually stays flat. And so that's why I was saying pull, wool, and I'll, or you'll, will, etc., because that's how I speak when I speak really quickly. We'll pull the wool over his eyes. So I want to talk about the dark L in this pronunciation tip at the end of this episode, guys. I guess firstly I should introduce the light L as well. So the light L is the L that we say at the beginnings of words, and when the L is followed by a vowel sound. So for example, light, love, laughter, letter. Those words all have the light L, at the start of the word, and they're followed by a vowel sound. The dark L is where there's a vowel sound before the L, and the next sound after the L isn't a vowel sound. It's a consonant sound, or there's just no sound at all. So some examples are, instead of ball, I would say ball. Instead of pull, I would say pull. Instead of cool, I would say cool. And instead of whale, I would say whale. So it's the sounds being made with my lips instead of my tongue. And I was trying to emphasize that in those sentences. One interesting thing to point out is that I think I noticed myself stopping at the end of wool, the word wool, and not linking it to over. But if I link the word wool to over, it'll pull the wool over his eyes. I actually link it with the light L, so I won't say the dark L there because I'm linking it to a word that starts with a vowel. So I'll still say, I'll pull, two dark L's there, I'll pull the wool over, the light L there, wool over his eyes. So just something interesting to chat about here at the end. I wanted to give you one example of a word that has both the light and the dark L in it. Little, the light L at the front there, lit, and then at the end the dark L, ooh, and it's my lips doing the work. Little, little. And for those of you who were here last week, you'll notice that the T's there are the T flap, and I, instead of saying little or little, I say little. So let's go through the listen and repeat exercise one more time, guys. I'll try and do this. It's hard. I have to think. I'm going to try and say the first two L's. I'll pull. I'm going to try and say those as dark L's. And then I'm going to try and say the L at the end of the word wool as a light L to link to the word over. Wool over. So I'm going to do my best. See if you can do it as well. And then after this, we'll do questions. So keep your questions in your head, but let's practice your pronunciation quickly. I'll pull the wool. Let me do it again. I'll pull the wool over his eyes. You'll pull the wool over his eyes. She'll pull the wool over his eyes. He'll pull the wool over his eyes. We'll pull the wool over his eyes. They'll pull the wool over his eyes. It'll pull the wool over his eyes. Great job, guys. Great job. I know that one is actually probably the most difficult sound to get in the Australian English accent. This is a really difficult one. I've found it hard to teach this, but I want to pay attention to it here so that when you guys hear this, you'll know at least what natives are doing. If you guys have questions now, put them down in the comments section below. You're welcome to ask me anything you want regarding any of the vocab that we've gone over here, the expression itself, to pull the wool over someone's eyes. Can you give me some example sentences of how you would use this expression? And if you have questions about anything else regarding English, regarding Australia, anything at all, feel free to ask. I'll give you 5 to 10 minutes and yeah, happy to take questions. So put them down below here in the comments section, guys, and I will answer anything that you want to ask as best I can. So go for it, guys, go for it. And you can even tell me, what are you guys up to today? What are you doing today? What is going on this weekend for you guys? Let me know if you've got some questions. I'll just see if I can scroll down here. Hey Carolina, how are you going? Simon, thanks for joining us, man. Luciana, how are you all going, guys? What are you up to? Is there any rivalry between cities in Australia, Luciana? Franca asks. Luciana, there is. There's a little bit. There tends to be a bit of rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne in particular. So Sydney and Melbourne have this rivalry going. Melbourne and Sydney, I think they have this happening because originally, when Australia was founded, these were the two biggest locations, the two biggest cities. I think they were founded around the same time. I know that Melbourne was founded in 1835 and was originally going to be called Batmania. So the guy who founded Melbourne was actually called, I've forgotten his name, his first name, but his surname was Batman, like Batman. You know, imagine the bat. Batman. And so they were actually thinking of calling Melbourne Batmania. Anyway, that obviously didn't happen and we call it Melbourne now, but Sydney and Melbourne were vying for being the capitals of the country, and they were about the same size, about the same age, and so they had this big fight, this rivalry going, and it's still going today about which city is more important, which is better, which has the better lifestyle. And I think obviously neither of these cities ended up being the capital of Australia, and instead we located the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, halfway between Melbourne down the south and Sydney in the north there. We placed the ACT in the middle and called Canberra the capital of Australia. And so I guess, yeah, that rivalry is still happening. It'll be happening in sports, whether it's rugby and you have the Melbourne Storm, and I don't know the Sydney teams. I don't really follow rugby, but you'd have it with Sydney, you'd have it with any of the Victorian teams in AFL. But yeah, that rivalry is definitely alive and well in Australia. And so I even have that joke every now and then with people like, you guys might know Chris, one of the listeners who's been working hard in the Aussie English virtual classroom. He's about to move to Australia from Brazil, and for reasons better known to himself, he's decided to move to Sydney instead of Melbourne. So I give him a bit of a hard time because of that stupid decision. So I hope you see this, Chris, and I hope you feel bad. Come to Melbourne. Come to Melbourne. So Lala asks, how many days would you suggest are enough for visiting Melbourne and the area around Melbourne? I think this really depends on what it is that you want to do, what it is you want to achieve during your trip. I think definitely a couple of days to spend in the city, and you'd have a great time. You'd be able to see most of what's there with 2 or 3 days. If you want to actually visit the surrounding tourist attractions, some really good ones include the Grampians. This is a small mountain range to the west of Victoria. So hopefully the video here is showing this the right way around. But if you've got Victoria sort of from here, South Australia here, and New South Wales up here, so this sort of, imagine like a piece of cheese or a piece of cake here. That's Victoria. Melbourne's smack bang in the middle, in the south. The Grampians are out here. The Great Ocean Road is down here. That's really worth seeing as well. I would also recommend Phillip Island, which is on the east side of Melbourne. And then further east and further south from Phillip Island, I would recommend Wilson's Promontory. So I would probably say that both those locations would require at least 1 or 2 days to get out to the east there, 1 or 2 days, and then to go to the west, you would probably need 1 or 2 days out there as well. And I should give a plug to New to Melbourne. This is a really good group run by Cam, a guy that I know here in Melbourne, and if you guys come to Melbourne and want to visit these locations, he runs trips out there every weekend for about $50. To get on the bus and to spend the entire day doing that. So go to the Facebook group New to Melbourne, and he always puts up events going to the Grampians, going to the Great Ocean Road, going to Phillip Island, going to Wilson's Prom, and it's really affordable. It's about $50, maybe even less than that some days. So definitely go there and say g'day to Cam from Aussie English if you do. Any more questions, guys? What else have we got here? What is the difference between the words cheat, deceive, and trick? Isabel wants to know. So there might be subtle differences here, Isabel, and there would definitely be reasons and times that you would use these words in different scenarios, different situations, but they are synonyms. You could definitely use them interchangeably. If you cheat in a game, this is usually to do with a game. If you cheat in a game, it's that you try and deceive or trick your opponent. So for instance, if I was playing chess and my opponent turned around and I took one of his pieces and either moved it or just completely took it from the board, removed it from the board, that's cheating. So I'm trying to give myself an advantage to win. However, deceiving or tricking isn't necessarily used in the same way with regards to like winning something. So you cheat at a game in order to win. Deceive or trick can just mean to do something in order to, I guess you're lying to someone in order to get some kind of advantage. So like we were saying in this episode, I was deceiving my father by pulling the wool over his eyes in order to trick him, in order to set up the birthday thing. But yeah, they're interchangeable. One thing I might mention is that cheat can be used with a partner if you are having a sexual relationship with someone else. And this is where we use a phrasal verb to cheat on someone. You won't say to trick on someone or to deceive on someone. No. We'd never say that. We say to cheat on someone to mean that you have another partner on the side who the other person doesn't know about. So you could say that you were tricking or deceiving the person and being with that other person, but the act itself, we use the phrasal verb to cheat on someone. So you cheat on your partner with someone else. You cheat with someone else on your partner. So I hope that makes sense. What else have we got here? Could you please pronounce I would, I'd, and I will, I'll? Alrighty. I love this sort of stuff, guys. Contractions. Contractions are the best. You guys need to learn these with all of these sorts of auxiliary verbs and modal verbs. Quite a lot of them, not all of them, but quite a lot of them get contracted. Like I am becoming I'm, I would becoming I'd, and I will becoming I'll. And natives do this instinctively all the time. It's something that you guys should definitely practice doing. There is a bit of a trick to it though. If you want to contract these, they need to be followed by something else, another verb. So you wouldn't reply to someone with I'm. You would have to say I'm doing something. Or the same with I'd. You'd never say I'd. You have to say I'd like, I'd do, I'd go. You have to follow it with information. But we do this all the time. If there's a verb following any of these auxiliary verbs that can be contracted, we almost always contract them unless we're emphasizing them. So I would, I'd. I will, I'll. And the trick there with I'll, it's like what we went over earlier today. You can hear it pronounced with the dark L. Because I is a vowel sound before the L and we end on the L, you'll quite often hear it as a dark L. So instead of I'll, you'll hear it as I'll. And you'll notice that my lips there are doing the work. I'll go. I'll stay. So it's very, very subtle, but you'll get used to it after a little bit of practice. It's just laziness. It's too hard to use our tongue to make that sound all the time. Any more questions before we finish up, guys? Any more questions? Is there a difference between filthy and dirty? Vale, this is a good question. Filthy and dirty. I think, again, these are two synonyms. However, I would say filthy is being very dirty. So it's a more extreme version of dirty. So I could say that if I had a stain on my jumper here, that it was a little bit dirty. It was dirty. If it was filthy, that's an extreme, the whole thing would be covered in dirt, would be dirty. You're filthy. You can also use these two words, dirty and filthy, in a figurative sense to refer to someone's thoughts. That's a really cool thing that you might hear from time to time in English. So you might hear someone say that he has a dirty mind. And that tends to mean that he talks about or thinks about sexual things. So if someone is always making sex jokes, you could say that guy's got a dirty mind. If you want to make it even more extreme, that it's really dirty, you could say he has a filthy mind. And again, if you swear a lot, someone might say you've got a dirty mouth. You've got a dirty mouth, meaning you swear a lot, you say a lot of dirty things. And again, if you want to make it more extreme, you would say he has a filthy mouth. He has a filthy mouth. He's always swearing. He's always being disgusting. He's saying gross things. He's got a filthy mouth. He's got a filthy mind. And if he's literally covered in dirt, like to the point of being, mud on the face, mud on the clothes, it could be a kid, my mum would probably come out and find me in the yard when I was younger and be like, Pete, come in and have a shower. You're filthy. You've been playing in the mud and you're just, covered from head to toe in mud. So I might finish up there, guys, or else this expression episode is going to go forever. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember, if you want the bonus content for this episode to practice the pronunciation, the grammar, all the vocab that we've gone through, as well as practice phrasal verbs and substitution exercises, and get the thorough PDF sheet for the entire episode, sign up to the Aussie English Classroom and try it for $1. $1 for the first month. You will get 4 lessons emailed to you once a week. 4 lessons for the next month for $1. And then if you decide that it's not for you, you can unsubscribe at any time. But I really recommend that if you want to study at your leisure, at home, by yourself, and really get gains quickly, sign up to the Aussie English Classroom. And yeah, let's do this, guys. Let's take your English to the next level. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and I'll chat to you soon. Peace out. G'day guys, thanks for watching the video. Remember, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so via my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. If you can't afford to support the channel financially, you can still help by spreading the word and sharing the videos. Thanks so much, guys. Stay awesome. All the best.